So the Amazon Synod has officially begun, and not gonna lie, I am frustrated. I'm quite angry with the situation. I'm not surprised. The rhetoric that's going on is precisely the kind of rhetoric that we've all been expecting. Looking at the kinds of things that the panel hosts are saying, the kind of people that are close to the highest ranking people of the church during the synod. I'm not going to be reiterating what's actually going on at the synod. You can look at Dr. Taylor Marshall, you can look at Michael Voris, Church Militant, LifeSite News. I'm sure all those typical sources have very good information on it. I'm just going to be offering my thoughts and talking about what I think we should do. Faithful Catholics, young traditional Catholics, what we should do to, sustain the faith at this point. First and foremost, we know that Our Lady will triumph, right? The apparitions remind us, Our Lady reminds us in her messages that her Immaculate Heart will triumph in the end. And I think we are living in pretty much the worst possible time in the church right now, because even looking at the past when there were, I'm not super familiar with the history of the papacy and wealthy spending and immoral life of the papacy, but people will often point to the Renaissance. I think that kind of time where popes were just spending lots of money and not necessarily living particular moral lives. I don't know the facts and the details about those situations, but what I do know is that we've never had such a dramatic stray from Orthodox teaching, where church officials are not interested in clarity, where there is a desire to promote confusion. We've heard it said that there is a desire for confusion, and this is very troubling, but also not surprising. We know there's a desire of confusion. We've always known, but now we have it in. Now we have proof. And the fact that traditional priests are being scolded for wearing berettas or saturnos and cassocks, this is not, even if the church were a completely secular entity, traditional priests, traditional parishes, traditional seminaries are the ones that are booming. You'd think that they wouldn't just kind of alienate their best audience, so to speak. You'd think that they would be like, okay, this is where vocations are coming from. Let's support that. Let's be like, thank you, priests, for your great work with tradition and with ministering to people and for providing people the pastoral need of the traditional liturgy. But no, that's not the kind of pastoral that anybody is interested in. That's too, the lines are too clear there. The teaching is too clear. So, yeah, I don't know. And obviously there's clearly a desire to promote all sorts of female ministry, everything but the priesthood. But then eventually we're gonna be looking at, I think eventually they obviously want to do away with the priesthood entirely. I'm sure we're gonna be hearing about something like priesthood of all believers. I'm sure there's going to be a promotion and an encouragement of all sorts of ministries that are just shy of the priesthood, right? Which might even include the diaconate. officially, whether or not they discover that that this is consistent with scripture and tradition. They might just be like, hey, let's just do it. But anyways, the honestly, like, okay, and like in terms of lifting the celibate on Western priesthood, that's not as big of a deal. Like, I believe that the celibate should be, like, celibacy should be sustained in the Western Church. But if like Pope John Paul II even, or like if Pius X for some reason was talking about maybe we should consider not having celibate priests anymore, as the Eastern churches do, then we could talk about that, because it's a disciplinary type thing. Although the theology of celibacy is very important in the West, that's not something that I trust the current authorities of the church to be doing. And I, again, reiterate that it should not be tampered with, it should not be changed. But even if it were to be changed, that's not the biggest deal. The biggest deal is why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they want to, make things better. They want to do it because they want to sustain whatever or promote whatever ideology they're trying to promote. The worst thing is the paganism. That is the worst thing that we're seeing. Prior to the beginning of the Synod, we saw crazy, weird pagan rituals being done in Rome, and just like total confusion, total madness. Church authorities like bowing down, prostrate before something that's been described as whatever you want it to be. So if someone thinks it's an idol, it's an idol. If someone thinks it's Mary, it's Mary. I certainly don't think the Blessed Mother would appreciate being depicted naked. So if it even is that, may God have mercy on us. Just like looking at the videos of those ceremonies, you see so much confusion. No one knows what's going on, and those who do are like, yeah, this is great, go paganism, like, okay, so here's the thing, we can't change any of that right now. Us lay people can't go to Rome and be like, Your Eminences, we demand you to stop. They don't care, obviously. But here's what we can do. We can recognize that we're not interested in learning from pagans. We have the Catholic faith. We have the fullness of truth. We're not interested from learning from pagans. We're not going to learn from pagans. Even if it so happens that there are priests who are going to be married, we're just going to go to the traditional priests. We're just going to go to Latin Mass, where there is no danger of that, where there is no confusion. We're just going to grow in virtue. We're just going to become saints. Do our best to become saints. It's hard, obviously, but, people are afraid about schism. Sure, you should definitely be afraid of schism. Pope Francis said he's not afraid of schism because maybe he thinks that it'll be the trads who go into schism or whatever, and obviously people call Burke a schismatic, which is nonsense. And there's a dog. I'll just wait for him to calm down there. He thinks he's scary. But anyways, our duty right now is to just try to become saints. And, that may mean all sorts of martyrdom, like not necessarily, like, I don't think we're going to be killed or anything for trying to be traditional, but we're definitely going to be called schismatics by crazy liberal German bishops or whatever. But yeah, I think that if anybody's going to be a schismatic, it'll be the Germans. Who knows? I don't know. that's like pure speculation at that point. I'm going to pay attention to what Cardinal Burke and Bishop Schneider and like Brandmuller, and like probably like what the Polish bishops are saying too, and just kind of like, if it comes to anything, just like do your research, make sure that I assume that staying in communion with the Pope is still the way to go. Unfortunately, I think that if anyone's schism is going to be the craziest people on the left. But yeah, we just got to keep on praying, because Our Lady will triumph, and God is like, okay, the gates of hell will not prevail over the church, right? There's a reason why God is allowing this to happen. I believe that this is happening so that the church can learn a lesson. I think the church is going to get dramatically smaller. I think maybe not the next conclave, but eventually we're going to have, divine intervention of a pope that will fix this, and the church will realize how close she came to losing everything. So I think this is a lesson in humility, to realize, and also a strengthening of the liturgy and of faith, because now everyone who celebrates the Latin Mass and everyone who goes to the Latin Mass are doing it with like maximum focus, maximum desire to pray and to worship God. A legitimate criticism is that in the past people were kind of like fudging it, kind of like maybe like not paying attention to the Latin well enough, or just like really not caring about the Mass. Like that, okay, that can be a legitimate criticism. And perhaps now that we see that we almost lost the Latin Mass, we almost lost the Catholic faith, the next generations, which are statistically more traditional, are going to sustain the faith with such holiness and such greatness that perhaps has never been seen before. Perhaps will rival the holiness and the saints of the Counter-Reformation, or even the martyrs. Well, perhaps not the first martyrs. I think that was a remarkably holy time in the church. But in any case, we'll be seeing some good fruits, I think. So stay strong, keep praying the rosary. Do it next time.